Yes, I am angry about it, although I do admit that much of what it reveals is probably true. I'm talking about a documentary called Manufacturing Dissent, which is just the latest in a series of attacks on Mike Moore. This one, though, is particularly effective, perhaps, and dangerous for Mike because it doesn't come from the American right wing, who just hate his guts and have many websites dedicated to his destruction. But it comes from Canadians, left-wing Canadians, they say they are. And as we all know, Mike loves Canada and Canada loves Mike. If you remember in Bowling from Columbine, he makes favourable comparisons between the gun situation in Canada and that in the US, and even more so in his latest film, Sicko. He says that the Canadian system of healthcare, of government-sponsored, paid-for healthcare is a dream, whereas America, as we're told, is abysmal. So for Canadians to start attacking him, friendly left-winger Canadians, revealing terrible things about the man, is particularly damaging, I think. But we also have to ask, what are these people's motivations? And at the end of the day, is it a good thing? Because who could deny that Mike Moore, the satirist, perhaps more than the truth-teller, is the Jonathan Swift of our time, the Mark Twain of our time, and that he, almost alone, is doing such a fantastic job of talking about the things that won't be talked about, whether it be Iraq or guns or now the healthcare system. Anyway, let's give Debbie Melnick, who's one of the Canadian filmmakers, along with Rick Kane, the first word. Here she is on Fox News telling us why she made the film and how.
So, Debbie, let me start with you. What kind of film did you set out to make about Michael Moore? What inspired you to do this project in the first place?
Well, we set out to do a regular biography about Michael Moore, and we thought, oh yeah, he'll want to talk to us because we're good lefties from Canada, so we thought, let's do this. And we were just going to do, like from his childhood to what he's doing now and all of the really great things he's done for the States and bringing up issues that are important. But along the way, we started to realize that he left some things out of in his film and in many of his films, and we were kind of disappointed and disillusioned. But basically, we wanted to do something about Michael because we believe in his ideology.
So that's the setup. Friendly Canadians, no axe to grind, ideologically completely agree with Mike Moore, and they stumble on his crimes and misdemeanors, his lies and his fabrications in the course of making their film. Debbie reiterates this again and again. There was no entrapment, it's just that they were committed to telling the truth, and when they found out what it was, they had to tell it.
We actually believed in following a documentary and following the story, and then when we find out some things, we also believe in telling the truth and showing what happened. So it's not like we set out to make an attack on Michael Moore. We certainly never started that way.
So, no axe to grind. What did they find that was so awful? Rick tells us that it was to do with the very premise of Roger and Me, that itself was a lie.
The Debbie mentioned about him having interviewed Roger Smith and then deciding to omit that from the final film is a fudge of the premise of Roger and Me. And so we started thinking, well, if he's going to fudge the premise, then what is sacrosanct with this particular filmmaker?
So that's the charge that Manufacturing Dissent makes against Mike Moore. Roger and Me was the story of Mike pursuing in a amusing and touching way Roger Smith, the CEO of General Motors, who was indifferent, it seemed, to the plight of his workers through the restructuring that was going on. As I said, it was funny, it's touching, Mike's relentless, but he doesn't get the interview, and that's what makes it a great and compelling film. Well, now Melnick and Kane are saying that that's not true, that he did get the interview, but he chose to suppress that because it made for a better movie. Well, that's pretty devastating, isn't it? But I want to propose in the second part of my talk, Mauling Mike Moore, that in fact there are other people here who are telling lies, and that their lies are just as destructive, perhaps, as what you've just heard. And by the way, if you want to hear that sound better, the Melnyk and Cain sound, go to YouTube, type Melnyk, M-E-L-N-Y-C-K, into that, and you'll get the Fox interview in its entirety, and you'll be able to hear what they're saying. See you soon.